Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
She was missing yesterday.
I was busy, and I'm going to be busy again today.
Yeah, she's helping Mama Sparkles.
Mama Sparkles has an Etsy shop, and her Etsy shop is bombarded, and she cannot keep up. So I am at her house helping her sew and helping her pack up orders because she's can't keep up.
That's very nice of you.
So I am not giving that store a shout out right now because I think she would literally kill me.
She can't keep up with what she's got. So yeah, we're gonna do a couple videos here with Geeky this morning, thankfully, and we're gonna talk about Time's Up. And this is really interesting. You sent this over yesterday.
Actually, Sarah sent it to me.
Oh, okay. All right.
My friend Sarah sent it to me. And then, I saw it and I sent it to you because I'm like, whoa, this is a video.
Yeah, it turns out that Time's Up was taking a lot of money and they weren't spending it on what was intended. And this is actually pretty common with charities. We've seen it before that there's supposedly a lot of overhead. A lot of times, unfortunately, some charities are there to bankroll the charity runners' lifestyles.
Yeah, or they're just using it for popular opinion PR. Trying to boost your image. Things like that. And I think that's what this ended up being. Yeah.
So this is this times it ties in with Brie Larson because she was a big advocate for this, and this is pretty normal. Unfortunately, this is pretty normal. So before we get into it, please give us a sub if you haven't done so already. We're over 156,000 subs.
Yay!
Hoping for 200,000 soon. We do cover pop culture news. We have views and rants on pop culture, and this is going to get kind of ranty, I think, because this is kind of bullshit. Mm-hmm. And it's not just the New York Post. People say, well, New York Post tends to be like a right-leaning organization.
Right.
No, we've actually got left-leaning sites like Kneon calling them out too.
Several places are covering it.
We've got the dailymail.co.uk with all their ads. They're covering it too. So star-studded Time's Up charities spent big on salaries and very little on helping the victims. Now, they did
spend some, but comparatively speaking, it is very, very small amount.
Hollywood's Time's Up organization set up to fight sexual harassment with Reese Witherspoon, Amy Schumer, and Brie Larson and other luminaries on its board, spent the bulk of its donations on executive salaries and only a fraction on legal costs to help the victims.
Right. So what I was seeing was they spent very little on actually helping the victims. They spent a lot on salaries. They spent a lot on lobbyists. Mm-hmm. In DC. I mean, I get it. You want to change some of the laws to, so I kind of can get that. But if the whole point is to fight those who have spoken out about harassment and been, penalized for it, then, why not spend the bulk of the money on that?
Oh, yeah. But that makes too much sense. You can't do that. Right. The organization, which is comprised of Time's Up Foundation, Time's Up Now, Inc., raised over $3 million, $3.6 million in 2018, its founding year, but spent $1.4 million on salaries and only $300,000 on the legal defense fund for people who have experienced harassment.
Now, what about the last couple years? We don't know.
We don't know. This is just the filing, so this will probably come out next year. So, I mean, look, to be objective, it's possible that it was front-loaded, that they had to spend a lot up front to get things going. Mm-hmm. But we're going to talk about some other cases where it winds up not being the case. I mean, even going back to the 1980s with like the Feed the Children, I remember there were exposés on that very little money actually got to the starving children in Ethiopia. Most of it went into the pockets of the people running the organization.
This is sad. I mean, you have a story you can share later about working at the one radio station and what happened.
I can. I think is my NDA up.
Oh, considering how that was before you married me, I'd say yes.
We'll talk about that.
But they have a watchdog group called Charity Navigator. They said that nonprofits should spend 75% of their revenue on their mission and 25% on administration. But they said Time's Up spent 38% on salaries alone.
And that doesn't include any other expenses.
No, they had like these retreat meetups and all this other shit. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is not looking good. And again, this is another blow against the hashtag #MeToo movement, because we have the situation with Amber Heard where it came out that she actually was guilty of some pretty shitty behavior herself, and she was a poster child for Me Too. And now we've got Time's Up, which was probably the most visible part of the Me Too movement, celebrity-backed part of it, and it turns out that they're kind of a sham.
Well, this that's a sad thing. What happens here is then people don't believe organizations that are really trying to make a difference. And stuff like this honestly legitimately happens. And there should be, things in place for those people that are victims of bad behavior. Unfortunately, though, this is what people are going to see, and they're not going to believe in it. They're not going to, they're not going to believe them anymore, flat out. And then this goes again about believe all women. Well, when this little tiny minority group of celebrities are going to ruin it for everyone.
Yeah, it's just it. Hollywood elites took the Me Too movement, the Time's Up hashtag, whatever, and they ran with it. They created a big circus around this hashtag, and they kept doubling, tripling down, saying, hey, we're going to help victims, we're going to help women, we're actually going to do something. And it turns out that what they did is they spent a bunch of money on, well, let's see here, we got luxury resorts. In 2018, the group co-sponsored a retreat at a luxury resort in LA. The retreat was dominated by agents from the Creative Artist Agency, who apparently had difficulty deciding on what the core mission should be. CAA laid a bunch of people off.
Right, but they had a bunch of people from this agency deciding what the core mission should be. Why was it, if it was back with these celebrities and it had these employees, why was CAA being the ones to decide? It wasn't like it was some kind of union or some kind of, agency that represented all these women. It was the CAA, which is its own thing.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make any sense. I mean, a lot of people have said this was just a PR stunt for these actresses. And the fact that CAA, how many are represented by CAA, I wonder?
Yeah, well, not as many as there used to be because they laid a bunch of people
but I'm just saying.
Yeah. So this is, look, it's a big Hollywood circle jerk. This is why people don't trust Hollywood. This is why Hollywood is so out of touch, and Hollywood will use anyone's tragedy to promote themselves. And that's what they're doing, because there are legitimate victims that are going to be lost in the shuffle. They're not going to be believed now because we've got Hollywood elites taking something. Well, it's the same with BLM. They're taking something that was supposed to be a grassroots thing, and they're adding the magic of Hollywood and the media to it.
They're hiring all these people from it and everything. So they're basically using them.
Using people
to promote their own for their own PR and for their own promotion. And they are. The Hollywood's hiring all these people, and it's so they could use them.
Yeah, so according to the tax filings, the mission of Time's Up Now is, so here's the thing. They went from let's clean up Hollywood to we're going to help all workers. Said an attendee who did not want to be identified. You don't want the whistleblowers to get identified. According to the tax filing, the mission was to promote safe, fair, and dignified work for women of all kinds. We work to make sure that women are free from harassment and other forms of discrimination while sending them to a luxury resort, have equal opportunity for economic security, and can achieve the highest positions of power wherever they work, but you only spent $300,000.
And achieve the highest positions of power when they work. Okay, you had me until then. So it's like, I think everybody, it shouldn't matter, race, gender, sexual orientation. You should all have the same chances to be, in positions of leadership. But that's kind of, everything else is like, we're here to stop this from happening. Oh, and by the way, make sure women are in power. That's that's a little weird.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. But this is kind of happening with, you look at other organizations in Hollywood too, like Women in Animation. We've heard stories about that. It's not actually about getting better working conditions for women in animation. It's about getting women into animation, having people from that group overtake the industry, and basically, so it sort of reminds me of like almost like some sort of a union that you join these groups and they get their people in, and then they sort of like start bullying the studios and I don't know. We've seen this before.
But the thing is, it doesn't even know what it is, really.
Nobody knows what it is. They just spend a lot of money.
Everybody knows the name, but they don't know what it is.
So in addition to posh conferences, Time's Up Now spent almost $300,000 on advertising, almost $1 million on legal costs.
Well, that actually could be legitimate if it was just starting out. Spending that much on legal costs could be legitimate for starting out.
Well,
but then.
Yeah, the majority of the figure, over $700,000, went to Arnold and Porter K. Scholar, a multinational law firm with a powerful lobbying arm on Capitol Hill. They spent almost $60,000 on travel and over $100,000 on Rally, a public relations company. So this sounds
PR right there. Okay,
very, very Hollywood. Of course, they said it was grew out of a reaction to blowback from the Harvey Weinstein thing. But
yeah, people close to him can still get to be put in charge of Star Wars shows at Disney. So, hey.
Yeah, so it got off to a bumpy start. people are talking about how, maybe going forward, it'll be better. But
that's what I'm saying. We don't know next year, so maybe it changed, maybe it got better. We don't know. But, some of the things like legal fees for setups make sense. But yeah, and I guess lobbying makes sense too. If they're trying to lobby for changes to laws to make it, harder for people to be just, whistleblowers to be punished and sexual discrimination and things like that. So I guess I can kind of see it. But the point was to help actual people. You didn't help actual people.
Well, okay, so this is where it gets really interesting, because this is something that you would think the right and the left would be split on. Now, originally when this was announced, you had a lot of right-leaning people being like, this is ridiculous, we don't need this, whatever. We definitely don't need Hollywood getting involved. And then we had people on the left that's like, no, this is a good thing. We got to do this. There are some things going on in Hollywood that need to be addressed. Both the right and the left, and the Post is a pretty right-leaning publication now, I would say. Meow is a very, very far left blog. And they're pointing out how bullshit this was. They said the tax filings detailed the mission of Time's Up Now as being to promote, safe, fair, dignified work for women. Instead, excessive amounts were spent on salaries instead of legal support. Lisa Borders was recruited to head Time's Up, but remained at the organization for only 4 months after her 36-year-old son was accused of sexual misconduct himself.
Okay.
Yet the CEO managed to pull in over $300,000 for her salary.
In 4 months.
In 4 months. So she's getting paid almost $100,000 a month. The chief marketing officer, Rachel Terrace, drew a salary of almost $300,000 for her efforts during the organization's first year. Treasurer Rebecca Goldman drew a salary of $255,000.
I mean, now, under those circumstances, that's not like super high amounts for LA or for these positions that are higher ups. However, when it's a charity organization.
Yeah, so this is their headline. Because look, people are giving money to Time's Up thinking they're helping women legitimately. And it's Hollywood.
It was helping some women legitimately, just not the ones they were intending to help.
The ones making $300,000 plus a year, yeah. And then, ironically, the one woman's son wound up getting accused of misconduct. This is Hollywood, people. This is how it works. This is why do people not believe celebrities when they do their activism? And here we've got Brie Larson associated with this one, too.
Well, what do you expect from Miss Drop the Taco? We should be promoting diversity, and we should have more people that are, diverse on set. But she won't give up her position to a diverse person, even though people were demanding they wanted Monica Rambeau. And it's like I didn't see her saying, you know what, you're right, I'm going to step down. Did you see that? No. Instead, she did a commercial where she said, "Drop the taco." To a girl that looks like she's, a Latina. Yeah. So it's like, what the hell? But, I don't remember which article it was. In one of the articles, I'm pretty sure it was Rose McGowan. I guess they asked her about it, and she said she wouldn't be part of it because she said it was a lie. She flat out said it was a lie and that these people were spending it on PR. I don't remember which article it was, but she said it was like, to her, it was a lie, and most of the money was going to PR, and, to promote the, basically look good. Yeah. To give them positive PR. I don't remember which article it was. It was one of the ones that I was sent. Or I found, I don't think you have it here. But, I just so they asked other female actresses and they said they wouldn't be part of it because of it.
Yeah, we have a lot of, mostly white women, running this thing. And yeah, some of them are getting paid.
Oh yeah, Alyssa Milano, and it was one of them. So, hello.
So this is Hollywood, guys. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not surprised. This kind of happened, before we wrap this up, we'll talk about a couple of our own experiences here. This kind of happened with Bink to some degree. Now, when the comic book industry kind of imploded, God, look at all the ads. When the comic book industry, I'm going to put it over here, kind of imploded, earlier in the year, there was this Bink Foundation was raising all kinds of money for comic shops, supposedly, and they were kind of the same, not to the extent of Time's Up, but they were accused of being top heavy, where they were paying their salaries and stuff first before they were giving to comic book shops. So there's not a lot of transparency, with a lot of these organizations.
The problem is with these organizations, sadly, is you are going to have people that run it. I mean, money's going to have to go to, keeping it going. And maybe initially you have to have more money to keep it going than you actually have bringing in to help people, because of the fact that, you're just starting out. However, they had a hefty budget to start with. Yeah. And even if they kept it under 25%, that still would have been quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it wasn't like they just started out, so they had to have a lot. They don't have, I don't think, the same excuse as some smaller charities might have.
Yeah, smaller charities is like, okay, well, we only brought in $100,000, $200,000 this year. We have to pay somebody $50,000, $60,000 just to run it.
Full time, yeah.
Yeah, and then we have like an office space or something like that. So that's a little more understandable. But when you've got, $3.5 million and a huge chunk of that goes to, a couple of executive salaries and luxury resort stays and all this other stuff.
And then I want to point out another thing. Some of the people they had pointed out are big celebrities, and they only could come up with $3.8 million to start. I'm like, there was a whole bunch of women tied to this. There were celebrities, and some of them are arguably like really, A-list celebrities. So a lot of them aren't, but some of them are. And I'm like, and that's the best they could do? I'm like, wait a minute. They're getting paid. They themselves are getting paid how much per film? Because of their star power and their pull, and they only come up with $3,800 among all of them in the first year.
Like you could get somebody like
or $3.8 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like you could get like somebody like Gwyneth Paltrow just cut a check for that.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm just, if it meant so much to them, I just don't understand why that's the best they could do. And there was a lot of them involved. So that to me seems weird. Maybe the next year they did better. We don't know. I'm just saying that seems like awful low for the people they have associated with it.
Yeah, I mean, look, we don't know what the filing is going to be for the following year, but it's not a good look. It's not a good look to take all this money and spend it on luxury resorts and stuff. When people who were giving to the charity thought that they were going to actually help victims.
We saw this. Well, I'll talk about the one you had, but like I know FIA. I'm pretty sure it was FIA. Got in trouble a couple years ago, and that's like a student loan organization. They got in trouble a few years ago because they were taking the money. And they were spending it on these luxury excursions for potential clients or bankers or things that would give money. They were spending millions. So meanwhile, while students were getting gouged ridiculous interest rates and all this other shit, they were out there just whining and dining and spending the money like water over at FIA. And then they wonder why people can't get out of college debt. That no matter how much you pay back, you never seem to get out of it.
Yeah.
Because they were spending the money, and they got in big trouble for it. And I remember that was a couple years ago. And then you had your story at the radio station.
Yeah, so back...
Not saying which radio station.
Yeah, I'm not saying which radio station. Back in the late 90s, I worked for a radio station. I was the marketing guy, and I did a lot of their web work back when very few people worked on the internet. I was building websites and stuff like that. And they were raising money for sick kids. I'm not going to even name the association because I don't want it, coming up or whatever. But it was money that was supposed to go to sick kids. And I found out via somebody who worked at the station that very little, if any, of the money that was raised during their big fundraisers, they had radio station bringing local celebrities in, and they would have like marathons and all stuff. Very little of the money actually went to the organization. Most of it went to the radio station's bottom line. And she was kind of a whistleblower on that. And I got wrapped up in that and I actually wound up quitting the job over it because it was like, I can't be
associated with this.
And there was, as far as I know, corporate, they own a lot of radio stations. Let's just put it that way. They were aware of it and they were duplicating this at other stations around the country. And they had zero issue with it. Because I actually wound up talking to one of their lawyers over this. As I got going, and they're like, basically that's just how we do things. Keep your mouth shut.
But then a lot of people did come out later and they got fired.
Yeah.
A whole bunch, and the radio station company got in trouble.
Yeah, they did. And they stopped doing those fundraisers. But yeah, they were, this is the thing. It was like, oh, it's a fundraiser and
help kids as we keep all the money.
Help kids as we'll kick them over a few bucks. And this happened,
Yeah, I think it was worded creatively. So it was the way that it was worded, they could get away with it. Like, we're going to give some money. And basically what it was, they were leading people to believe the money was going to kids, but legally they had their butts covered on some extent. Like,
yes.
The way it was worded was in such a way that, it really wasn't all going to those kids, but they let people believe that it was, even though they worded it in a way that if you listen closely, you'd know.
Yeah, so basically how it was worded was a portion of what we raised at these events would go to this particular charity. And I think it wound up being less than 10% of what was raised.
People, I think, assumed after their overhead, all the money went. Like after their expenses, what people assumed. But it turned out they were pocketing a bunch of it. So this is a normal thing. And what happens is, sadly, is that when this stuff happens, people are afraid to give to charities. And then the ones that get hurt are the ones who these charities are supposed to help to begin with. The ones who take the brunt of the backlash are the people aren't going to give to them anymore. And then the people that really, really needed created it in the first place are the ones that no one's going to give to, and looking forward, they might not give to other charities either because they don't trust them.
Yeah.
So all this does is, this does so much damage. I can't even tell you how much long-term damage stuff like this can do.
Well, it's also going to be a huge blow against the Me Too movement too, because now...
I mean, another one,
because people are going to look at it and be like...
Well, wasn't one of the leaders got accused of sexual harassment, sexual misconduct herself?
I believe so, yeah.
And then you have this, and then you have, you had Amber Heard in that situation.
Yeah.
So there's a lot, it's going to blow back. But sadly, there are a lot of people who are harassed legitimately. And there are men that are harassed legitimately, too. I want to point that out because everybody glossed over that. It pisses me off. I've got a son, and he even said, he goes, something happened to me, no one would believe it. And that's not okay. And men are supposed to just suck it up and be like, oh, go you. That's not okay. I'm just going to say, I take every opportunity to say so. But, there is legitimate harassment out there, and it's going to be glossed over because of bad behavior like this. And it's not okay.
No, it's not. And this is Hollywood, guys. This is how, this is why...
I hate Hollywood. It's one of the fakest places. I was out in LA. I was going to move out there to do acting and stuff. And I was there a week and came back. It was the most fake place I've ever been in my life. And some of you might be from LA and you might love it, and that's okay, and that's you. To me, I'm not trying to insult you, but to me, it was very superficial and very fake, and I hated it.
There are multiple LAs. LA is different depending on
where you're at. Yes,
where you're at socially, I think.
But the ties of the Hollywood end, it was, I'm not saying all of it. The Hollywood ties that I was around, it was very bullshit, and I hated it. And I'm sorry, but I did.
Yeah, and this is just another example of Hollywood taking a very serious thing, using it for PR, and that's what they did. And they've done the same thing with BLM too. They're using it for PR.
They're using it.
Using victims, using certain groups, minorities, for themselves.
Whatever the next big movement's going to be, they're gonna latch onto that and use it for themselves again.
And this is why people have such a disdain for Hollywood activists, because they're not going to listen to 95% of Hollywood activists because of bullshit like this.
Right.
It's fake.
And sadly, then it comes because Hollywood's its own little bubble. But then the rest of the world sees it, and then they don't want to trust groups that are legitimate. Yeah. Because of it. But anyway, we need to wrap this up because it's going very long.
It is. So
I have to go sew and help my mom.
There you go. So yeah, your time's almost up.
Yeah, my time's it wasn't on purpose, but for a different reason.
All right, guys. So please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye.